Maniacs, welcome back to the channel, doing another Mr. Ballin reaction, and this apparently is the true story of the incidences or the situation of the exorcism of Emily Rose. Now, I have seen the movie. I own the movie on DVD. I've seen this movie probably about 4 or 5 times. I really enjoy it. I do kind of understand some of the true story. I don't know every little detail, and seeing that Mr. Ballin has a video about it kind of makes me want to really check it out because he has a great way of telling stories. So if you like this type of content and want some more content like this, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, share the content. It does mean a lot. We are on our way to 20,000 subscribers. We're hoping to accomplish this by the end of the year. So I'd really appreciate if you hopped on the bandwagon, and let's go ahead and dive into this video, and I'll give you guys my opinions during and after the video.
One of the most terrifying movies I have ever seen has got to be The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Oh, yeah.
What really made it scary was that it was based on a true story. The true story of Anneliese Michel, who was a 23-year-old girl living in Germany in the 70s, who was apparently possessed by demons. And there's a lot of audio recordings and some pretty incredible
I'm pretty sure I've heard
what happened to this
these
poor
recordings.
Girl. There's one scene in particular that, while it is a dramatization of what happened to Anneliese, it is certainly an accurate portrayal of what did ultimately physically happen to Anneliese Michel, and it is one of the most hair-raising, horrifying scenes in movie history, in my opinion. It is just downright disturbing. All right, let's dive in. Anneliese Michel was born in 1952 in Western Germany to a fiercely religious family. Devout Catholics who believed in some of the more extreme elements of the Catholic faith. Now, one of the things that they believed in and certainly pushed on to Anneliese and her siblings was this idea that sin could not be atoned on your own. It would require other people effectively sacrificing on your behalf for you to be absolved of your sin. And so Anneliese and her siblings would be instructed by her parents to, at times in the winter, sleep on the hardwood floor in order to repent for sinners that can't repent for their sins on their own. And so she'd be laying on the floor in the middle of the winter, thinking that what she was doing was saving other people from their own sin. In 1969, Anneliese would have her first seizure. She was at school, she suddenly started seizing up and convulsing, and her classmates would later tell investigators and her family that it was almost like she'd entered into a trance-like state while she was having this seizure. And then as soon as the seizure had ended and she was done convulsing, she snapped out of the trance-like state. It wasn't until a year later when Anneliese had another seizure in the middle of the night. She had this convulsion and her parents come in and she's in this trance-like state and she's wet the bed and then she snaps out of it and she doesn't know what happened. It wasn't until this second seizure that the family actually sought medical attention. They actually went to a neurologist. That neurologist would tell Anneliese and her family that what she was suffering from was something called temporal lobe epilepsy, where, you know, amongst a litany of horrible side effects, a few of the more significant ones are serious auditory and visual hallucinations, a loss of awareness, and intense mental state. So Anneliese was prescribed medication by this neurologist to try to combat this temporal lobe epilepsy, but it didn't seem to do anything. And in fact, her seizures and convulsions and this trance-like state she would go into during the seizures, it only persisted and intensified. And it got to a point where Anneliese and her family believed the best thing for her to do would be to go to a psychiatric hospital where the staff there was better equipped to handle what was happening to her. And so she checks in willingly, and they start experimenting with different drugs, and nothing seems to work. And in fact, her condition only gets worse. She starts having more seizures and more convulsions, and she starts having a regular visual hallucination, whether she's having a seizure or not. Everywhere she looked, if she looked at anybody in the face, their face would become demonic. Like it would be a demon's face that would look at her and say, "You're going to rot in hell."
Pretty intense shit going on right there. And they kind of captured that in the movie too. Not like necessarily, you know, the demons telling them that she was going to hell. The fact that no medication or medicine's helping her, but only making it worse. It's like, what's really happening here?
And so she began not being able to look at people in the face, and she would tell the nurses and doctors, like with her head down, about these demon faces she was seeing. And it was the first time she began espousing this idea that she was in fact possessed by demons. In fact, 6 demons by her count. When she passed on that information to her family that she believed she was possessed, she and her family believed that the psychiatric hospital was not enough, and in fact, modern medicine was really not enough to handle what was
So they
happening to her.
seeked out God,
They would need to search for help outside of medicine, and so they turned to the Catholic Church. Initially, all the clergy that Anneliese and her family approached to try to help her with the situation rejected her request, and they said, you need to seek medical attention. This is not something we can help you with. Not knowing where to turn, her family is kind of at a loss. At the same time, Anneliese's condition really nosedives. I mean, it was already pretty bad. It gets a lot worse. She began doing 400 plus squats every day, like compulsively doing squats. Then she began going under the table periodically and not coming out for 2 days, barking like a dog the entire time without sleeping. She began going to corners of the house and finding spiders and eating them off the ground.
Yep, I've heard about that. Yep.
Scurry over to the fireplace and pull coal out of the fireplace and eat the coal. I mean, she was really losing it. Finally, the family located a priest named Ernst Alt who believed she was possessed and that she was not epileptic, and he was willing to petition the local bishop to allow the Catholic Church to perform an exorcism. And so that bishop granted permission for a local priest, Arnold Renz, to perform an exorcism with the full endorsement of the Catholic Church. Over the next 10 months, Renz would conduct 67 exorcisms of Anneliese. And through these exorcisms, Anneliese would reveal that she was being possessed by 6 demons: Lucifer, Cain, Judas, Nero, Fleischmann, and Adolf Hitler. And so all of these voices, these demonic voices that were coming out of Anneliese, they were picked up on audio recording during the exorcisms. And in the movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, the most iconic scene in the movie
is
the demon scene, where they show off these voices coming out of, in the movie it's Emily Rose, but it's supposed to represent Anneliese Michel.
Yeah.
And they do a fantastic job showing what that might have looked like during the exorcism. So
I think he's about to show us a clip or something, but there was a moment, in the Exorcism of Emily Rose where she runs out to the horse barn and stuff, and she says she's like the devil in the flesh. And that scene always makes my hair stand up. It's like if you got told that to your face by someone you knew was possessed, and they looked at you and said, I'm the devil in the flesh, I'm the devil himself, you would shit your pants.
So take a look.
Give me your name, demon! Ancient serpents, depart from this servant of God! Tell me your 6 names!
We are the ones who dwell within. You shut your head, but
Judas.
You die. And I am Lucifer, the devil in the flesh.
And now I want you to take that scene you just watched of Emily Rose being possessed by
demons,
and think about that as you listen to the actual audio recordings of Anneliese Michel during one of her many exorcisms.
Okay.
Ja, ich will auch für die anderen leiden, damit die nicht in die Hölle kommen und so. Aber dass das dann so schlimm ist und so grausam und so furchtbar, nee.
Gekletze! Nein, Gekletze! Einmal Gekletze! Oh, so eine Milane, doch!
Als Kind Gottes.
Ich hab ein Bruder geschlagen!
Pretty hard to believe that.
Ruhe gibt's nur dort, wo die Liebe ist.
Ja, bei uns gibt's nur ja nun.
Gosh dang.
Die müssen in eigenen Seminaren ausgebildet werden, die dürfen nicht auf die anderen Universitäten. Kapiert?
Geist. Befehle ich dir auszufahren und nicht.
Initially, the exorcisms seemed to make things better for Anneliese. She got to a place where the seizures and convulsions and trance-like states and odd behavior were so few and far between that she actually re-enrolled in university and was even able to attend church, but it didn't last. In the spring of 1976, Anneliese's convulsions and seizures and odd behavior came back tenfold, and she began becoming violent with her family members to where they couldn't even be around her without being attacked by her. But when she was left on her own, she would harm herself. She stopped eating, saying that the demons were not allowing her to eat, and all day long she would stand up and then drop to her knees to pray, and then get back up and drop to her knees to pray, breaking both her kneecaps and tearing the tendons in her knees, which seemingly did not faze her. But still, her family believed that what she needed was religious intervention, not medical intervention. Also, Anneliese felt the same way, but some might say that she was not in a position to make that decision, that she had lost her ability to make that decision. But either way, they continued with the exorcisms. The final exorcism of Anneliese took place on June 30th, 1976, and while Anneliese did submit willingly to this exorcism, she was incredibly frail. She weighed under 100 pounds, and by the following morning, on July 1st, 1976, she had passed away due to dehydration and malnutrition. She was only 23 years old. After her death, Anneliese's story was so sensational that it grabbed headlines all over Germany, and people were clamoring to learn more about how this could happen. That she was, apparently possessed and then died after all these exorcisms. Why wasn't there medical intervention? There was so many questions.
They tried.
And so
they tried.
What happened is her parents were charged with negligent homicide, but were actually not given a jail sentence because at the time in Germany, they ruled that the parents had already suffered enough, so they did not serve any jail time. And there were two priests, one of them being Renz, who were charged with negligent manslaughter, and they were sentenced to 6 months in jail. That was suspended. To this day, people are absolutely split down the middle about what actually happened to Anneliese Michel. Was it possession, or was it, like the neurologist said, a form of epilepsy, or was it something else? And furthermore, was psychiatric treatment or was modern medicine doing enough to help her? Or were they failing just as much as the exorcisms ultimately failed? It's a question that to this day people are really unsure how to answer. Her gravesite has become sort of like a monument for many churches around Europe. They will go and basically make the pilgrimage to her gravesite to pay their respects to a girl that they believe in some way died for their sins. So what do you think this was? Was this demonic possession, or was this epilepsy? Or was it something else? And how do you think they should have treated this case? I mean, obviously the medications she was on...
No, she wasn't working.
...making it any better. But at the same time, the exorcisms didn't seem to do much better either.
If you had to ask me my personal opinion, do I believe this was probably more supernatural than anything? It certainly, in my personal opinion, comes off to me that way. The fact that they did try to go down the medical approach and nothing worked, and then even psychiatric help, that didn't work at all either. But at least with the exorcisms, she actually apparently went back to school at one point. She was doing much better. I don't know. Again, that's kind of the perfect... I think it's split right down the middle. It could have been either or, honestly. I do lean more towards the supernatural paranormal side of it, in all seriousness. It's just freaky, just everything she would do, the fact that she would drop to her knees and broke both of her kneecaps and shit like that, just like, and without feeling anything. Passed away at the age of 23 years old. Way too young to go. It's so sad. Thoughts. I haven't heard the whole story. There was some things in there I learned that I wasn't aware of. The fact that she would eat coal from the fireplace and other things like that. Really disturbing. The movie did a really good job, I thought, capturing most of what happened. And comment down below, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll check you guys out in the next one. Keep it retro and take care.
Thank you.